Morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this 22nd day of May 2023. Well, right here in Brisbane, it is 17 degrees and sunny. And today, one of the news that we'll be looking at would be the uptake on the vaccination rate. So, low vaccination rates are blamed for the potentially bad flu season. So that's why I got my flu vaccination done this morning. That's why the show is at 10 rather than 9. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. Let's first of all take a look at the news in brief.
Government will regulate the buy now, pay later industry under the Credit Act to better protect consumers. Buy now, pay later will be treated as a credit product and providers must have a credit licence, hardship requirements and minimum standards for conduct. There were 7 million active buy now, pay later accounts last financial year.
So they've got a legitimate role to play. We think that they do have that role to play in the system. They are very popular, but we need to make sure that we can manage them appropriately.
In Queensland, an investigation is underway after a 29-year-old First Nations man was fatally shot by police in Brisbane's inner north. Emergency services were called to the property yesterday and found a man with stab wounds to his left hand and a shoulder injury. A short time later, the offender allegedly lunged at police and was shot 3 times. G7 leaders have agreed to a united approach to China that calls for diversifying supply chains at the end of the 3-day summit in Japan. US President Joe Biden says the move would reduce dependence on one country. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky had the final word at the summit, rejecting Russia's claim it has conquered the city of Bakhmut after months of fighting. There's been a call for an overhaul in training for those caring for dementia patients after the New South Wales Police tasered a 95-year-old woman in residential aged care. Claire Nowland remains in a critical but stable condition in hospital.
So there you are, ladies and gentlemen, the news in brief. And, why would someone have a need to taser an elderly lady like that? Well, right now, let's take a look at some of the news in details. First of all, that shooting in Brisbane.
A suburban street suddenly swarming with police. Gunshots had shattered a quiet Sunday afternoon.
This is indeed a tragic afternoon for the family that were present and witnessed this incident.
Officers were called to the home in Brisbane's inner north to reports a man had stabbed his father.
In the left hand, it was quite a deep laceration and also suffered an injury to his left shoulder.
Police say the man then lunged at officers with a knife,
which resulted in an officer, a uniformed constable from a local station, discharging 3 shots.
Despite efforts to revive him, the 29-year-old First Nations man died. There were multiple children at the scene. Paramedics attended the scene yesterday to a reported mental health incident involving the victim. Police say he did not spend the night at hospital, but the nature of that incident will inform their investigations. Ethical Standards Command will question 6 police officers about the shooting.
So at this stage, my preliminary information is the taser was not deployed at any time.
The coroner is also expected to attend the scene. The father is in hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Scout Wallen, ABC News.
So there you are, ladies and gentlemen, that news, disturbing news, I must say, of the fatal shooting in Brisbane. Well, right now, as I talked about the vaccination rate and the low flu intake, because in the last few years with the COVID in place as well, we know that the flu was under control for some reason, and the hygiene and everything played a lot of role, and the social distancing and people behaving well. But right now, low vaccine or the vaccination rate is blamed for bad flu season.
A lot of vaccine fatigue out there, and many parents, although they've got intentions to get their children vaccinated for the flu this year, in fact, almost 60% of parents said they plan to do it. As of the end of April, only 11% had actually got around to getting that jab done. So At the same time, we've seen flu very much arrive across Australia with over 40,000 cases nationally so far already this year. So our big message this morning is to remind parents, get out there and actually get the vaccination done.
One finding leapt out at me, and that is that 25% of those surveyed, parents that is, who aren't vaccinating their kids against the flu this year, hold concerns about the safety and the efficacy of the vaccine. Really?
Yeah, so we still are hearing there's a lot of hesitancy about vaccination, and obviously through COVID, some people started to really feel unsure about vaccination. The study showed us that 1 in 4 parents not sure if it's really safe, not sure if it works well enough.
How do you conquer that? How do you try to get the message to those parents?
That's right. We'll really want to remind and reassure parents that the flu vaccine absolutely is safe for children. It doesn't cause the flu. Nearly a third of parents thought it might actually give you the flu. It doesn't give you the flu. It's not a live vaccine. It's obviously rigorously tested, and we've had a lot of people have it now for this season, and it's very, very safe, and in fact it does work well. So about 65% of the time it's going to prevent and reduce the severity of flu.
Has any of the talk about cost of living and what people are facing come into their decision about whether it's something they really need to do?
Yeah, interestingly, cost is a factor for parents. So around half of parents said cost would make a difference. Parents would rather not have to pay for the flu vaccine. We have to remember that for children under 5 and for others who are eligible, perhaps they have underlying health conditions, or for older Australians as well, it is free. So not all parents are aware of that. Those children between 6 months and 5 years of age, the flu vaccine is free, and that's the age group where it does hit the hardest. So really get out there and get it done.
Let's look at the flip side. What are the consequences, the potential health consequences for some kids if they're not vaccinated against the flu?
Yeah, so influenza in children, particularly young children, can be incredibly serious. Most of the time it is a mild illness, but in young children it can cause more severe complications. So pneumonia and sinus infections, inflammation of the heart, inflammation of the brain are some of the things that do occur. And of all the age groups, it's the young children who are most likely to have those severe complications.
Do they have to go to a doctor to get it, or they can go to the pharmacy, or what?
They do need to see either a healthcare centre or a doctor in the younger age group children. So older children can be vaccinated at a pharmacy, but for young children, either the local health centre or a GP.
So there are, but it is advisable that you do get it done, do get the vaccination and stay safe. On the other hand, the voluntary euthanasia is going to be made legal in ACT. Here's that report.
It's not often we get a glimpse behind the curtain to meet those who care for the dying.
Death in our society is really hard for people to get their heads around and to talk about it. It's still a taboo subject.
At the Canberra Hospital, palliative care staff offer medical assistance, counselling and pain relief to those diagnosed with a terminal illness.
We started the medicinal cannabis last night.
But by ACT law, there's one issue that Kate Reid can't discuss with her patients: voluntary assisted dying.
I've had a few patients raise it with me. It's a very topical issue, and so people are aware of that voluntary assisted dying is coming into the ACT.
The ACT is planning the country's most liberal voluntary euthanasia laws that could see not just terminally ill adults, but also children included in the scheme.
It may well be that an age limit is arbitrary, and it would be about a medical professional's assessment of a person's decision-making capacity.
The laws will likely come too late for terminally ill euthanasia advocate Kath Dyson. Diagnosed with leukaemia, Kath may only have months to live, but after researching her options, has a backup plan.
What options do you have?
Well, I guess what it comes down to is suicide, one way or another, but it would be much more pleasant for everybody if you could do it legally without too much hassle.
It seems to me that euthanasia and VAD are a brutal and a tragic way of dealing with terminal illness for people in their great fragility.
The Catholic Church is vowing to block voluntary euthanasia in the end-of-life care hospice it runs on behalf of the government.
Will voluntary assisted dying ever be offered as an option in end-of-life care at Clare Holland House?
No, it won't, and not only Clare Holland House, but I can speak with certainty that it won't be offered in any of our healthcare facilities.
Euthanasia legislation is expected to be debated in the ACT Legislative Assembly later this year. Kath Dyson is prepared for it to be her final fight.
Yes, I think it's a human right to have that option of ending your life when you feel as though it's over.
Craig Allen.
Well, as you have heard from that news, people have different opinions. The Catholic Church will be blocking that. And I, for one, now, and this is my personal opinion, would rather leave it to natural causes, leave it to the predetermined time. Someone up above there with more authority than us has set a date. So we should do all we can to look after and care for our terminally ill, and just voluntary, ending life, I don't believe is the right thing to do. As I mentioned before, a disclaimer that that's my personal view. Well, right now let's move on to New South Wales. The Treasurer is unclear when the wages cap will be abolished.
Growing impatience is putting the government under pressure.
The Labor government and their broken promises.
Some health workers want a 6% pay rise, but when all union leaders met with the government last week, a 4% increase was discussed.
Of course I would expect paramedics and others to agitate hard to catch up to other states. We're working through those issues.
The controversial wages policy was introduced by the O'Farrell government. The Industrial Relations Act was changed to give the government the power to set a cap on pay rises for public sector workers. The limit was set through regulation and it's currently 3%. It means the Industrial Relations Commission has to adhere to the government's policy. It's easy enough to remove the cap because it's regulation, so the new government can just do it. But Labor is arguing that it first has to develop a replacement policy, and it also wants to repeal the original change in legislation. The government's plan is to overhaul the entire system.
We are currently pleased with the fact that there are lots of ideas about how we can do interest-based bargaining, and we look forward to working out the fine print as we go about repealing the Liberal National Party's wages policy.
There are 70 agreements that will expire by the end of the financial year. That covers about 200,000 people, half of the public service. It's unlikely the wage cap will be abolished by then. But the government says it can still reach agreements and include provisions like back pay for when the cap is removed. So far, it's only the Health Services Union taking industrial action. And in a show of good faith, the Treasurer will meet again with union leaders this week. Ashley Raper, ABC News, Sydney.
So there you are, talking about the cap, and 3% rise is where it's sitting at. Right now, let's go to South Australia, where a bypass could make financial sense.
A mecca for tourists and traffic. The narrow, historic main street of Hahndorf is often bustling with pedestrians, cars and trucks.
The main street is a designated heavy transport corridor, which makes no sense when we've also got the main street that has the most foot traffic in South Australia and is a tourist icon.
Harold Galash has lived and worked on the main street of Hahndorf for 45 years.
Trucks coming all day, up to 500 trucks a day. It's a problem that's not going to go away. A certain government may ignore it and try and overlook it, but the problem is increasing.
2 years ago, the then state government announced plans to build a new bypass link road around Hahndorf. But late last year, the new government said it would upgrade the interchanges at Verdun and Mount Barker instead, abandoning the new bypass. A recently revealed report from 2020 suggests upgrading the Verdun interchange will be a less economically viable solution. It also concluded that a bypass link road was a critical piece of infrastructure.
It provides the answers to the government to address the traffic problem in Hahndorf.
We want people to have a wonderful time in our beautiful village. It's just such a lovely place to live. It's a lovely place to visit. We want people to come, but we want them to be safe.
The state government says almost 1,000 cars and trucks will be removed from the main street after its chosen upgrades, preventing property acquisition and protecting Hahndorf's character and environment.
I just don't understand why they would want to carve up, pristine countryside, businesses and, wildlife corridors when there is other bypass options available using existing roadways.
$250 million was initially set aside for upgrades in and around Hahndorf. $200 million of that was to be funded by the federal government. But at the start of this month, it announced a 90-day review of its infrastructure investment program, which will see a number of projects cancelled. It won't confirm which projects are being targeted until the review is complete.
For now, the hustle and bustle continues. Candice Prosser, ABC.
The hustle and bustle does continue, and sometimes those things are the core nature of that area and the core heart and what makes that area what it is. So sometimes taking away and the traditional old roads and a bit of a traffic and making it with a big highway sort of roads there would probably, in my feeling, take it away from the venue itself. Well, right now looking at our ecosystem, who else than our traditional owners of the land to know about the best care for our ecosystem?
We benefit from having the country healthy, and we're getting the country healthy, we're taking care of her, she takes care of us.
Cool.
It's currently a critically endangered species of plant. When it flowers, it's got a beautiful red, sort of reddy pink plant. The project is about bumping up the numbers of the plant because we don't want it to go extinct. And we've got Jamie Freeman, Jasmine Penrith and Leanne Williams out today. And we're just putting these little babies in the ground and hoping that they survive.
The New South Wales Government has had a conservation program for the critically endangered Tumut grevillea for, it's nearly coming on 30 years. This is just one threatened species among many that community, the Walgaloo Wiradjuri community of Brungle Tumut, are now assisting us with the conservation management of.
So the project itself is about all of us, our community, our people being out on our country, getting our country healthy together, and that feeling of connectedness and wholeness.
I've got a very green thumb when it comes to keeping plants alive at the house. But out here, we have the resources and the help. Dave's amazing with the knowledge of being able to plant them and keep them going. So because of where it is, we'll be able to come out and monitor them and see how they're growing and whatnot. So it's meaningful. We know that in the future it's going to be good. They're going to grow. They're going to be here for our kids, and that makes you feel better.
We see this as a project that needs to be ongoing. This needs to be how we just do business in biodiversity conservation. It's not just New South Wales Government or federal government going about biodiversity conservation in the absence of the local traditional owners. We need to be moving forward with the traditional owners and doing everything together in collaboration and supporting the traditional owners to be on country.
And what a wonderful report there. Yes, we also can support that through our own initiatives as well, and supporting the Arbor Day, which is a plant a tree day. Well, for the last report going out for today's one is, everyone loves sugar. Sugar in the morning, sugar in the evening. Oh, my little sugar. We love you all the time. But what about salt? How is that being harvested?
This is one of the outlet sites that catches the saline water from the aquifer before it leaches into the Murray. The mitigation program prevents 200 tonne a day of salt and brine water leaching into the Murray. We utilise all the water every year. It will be going into towns for the gourmet Murray River salt, the flakes, but the bulk of this salt goes to hide. So the salt with some boric and sodium get put on the skins and tumbled, so that the skins are still nice and fresh, longevity for when they reach overseas. A lot of it goes to pool salts and also white food grade salt.
Salt, not by the bucket loads, by tons of it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's about all we have for you in this segment today. We'll bring to you all the functions and events once again from tomorrow once it's all updated. And I'll also bring to you a special segment on the very special address by the Queensland Premier to the gathering at FICQ's 25th anniversary at Brisbane City Hall. And all of that coming your way tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, until that time, it's goodbye from us.